The diplomatic row between India and Nepal has escalated today, with the senior Nepalese minister accusing India of planning to send in the army and India strongly condemning that statement. The two countries have seen a rapid deterioration in ties over Nepal's new constitution, which the Madhesis, who are ethnically close to India, have been opposing.
20-year-old Ashish Kumar Ram, a first-year college student from Bihar, killed in the firing by Nepal police on Monday at the border near Birganj. Nepal insists the police had no choice but to use force, since they were faced with hostile mobs as they tried to break up a 40-day protest by local Madhesis, who were blocking key trade routes. The Madhesis, who have ethnic links to India, have been protesting against Nepal's new constitution. But the police crackdown has failed, and the protesters are back, their tents pitched on a key bridge. There is an indefinite curfew. It's an emptied out border here at the Indo-Nepal border at Bihar's Raxaul and Nepal's Birganj to the other side. You can see this is a border that would be absolutely choked right now. You'd have people in tangas and bikes. You'd have trucks, buses when they were running about 40 days ago. But because of the tension over the Madheshi agitation,
हम लोग तो बैठने पर ऐसे ही विवश है। हम लोग को वहाँ का शासक इतना ना दमन कर दिया है कि हम लोग को अब यहाँ से कहीं और पनाह लेने का जगह ही नहीं है। भारत सरकार हम लोग को कोई ऐसा सहयोग इसमें नहीं किया है। हम लोग को भारत सरकार ये भी नहीं बोला है कि यहाँ नाका पर बैठिए। हम लोग तो 10 गजा पर न बैठे हुए हैं, मैत्री पुल में बैठे हैं हम लोग इंडिया में तो धरना नहीं लगा है।
the latest incident has made an already tense relationship with India even worse. A senior Nepal minister even accused India of planning to send in soldiers. A furious Indian embassy said, "The comments are provocative, baseless and ill-intentioned. Coming from a responsible person holding the post of minister, the comments have the potential to adversely affect the cordial relations between India and Nepal." Officials in India are waiting and watching to see how things play out. But clearly, as Kathmandu turns to China for help, the concerns are growing. With Nidhi Razdan in New Delhi and camera person Habib Ali on the Indo-Nepal border, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
So why is it that India-Nepal ties have taken this astonishing turnaround in just the last few months? Is this a foreign policy disaster? Who is to blame? Is it New Delhi or is it Kathmandu or both? Joining us on the program tonight is Prashant Jha. He's the associate editor of the Hindustan Times. He's from Nepal. He's covered the country very closely for many, many years and knows and understands the subject well. Mr. Sheshadri Chari, a strategic affairs expert and member of the BJP's national executive, is with us. Manish Tiwari is with us as well. And we'll also be joined by former diplomat Vivek Karchu shortly. Mr. Chari, let me ask you first, how do you, look at this deterioration in the diplomatic relationship, particularly in recent weeks? We were showing pictures of how, Mr. Modi got this rapturous welcome when he went to Nepal about a year ago and became the first Indian Prime Minister to go there in 17 years. And, today we're in a very sort of ugly diplomatic war of words. What's gone wrong, Mr. Chari?
No, basically what India suggested to Nepal was that they should speed up the constitution making process, which was delayed for more than 7-8 years. But India only suggested that Nepal is a sovereign country and they are free to adopt a constitution, but we only suggested that it should be inclusive constitution, a comprehensive one, and in consultation with all the sections of the people. But the problem is, after they adopted the constitution, what they promised and what they brought out was very different. But that apart, there is a large section of the people like the Madheshis, the Tharus, the Limbu, the Limbuan and the Janajatis. They are all left out. They have a feeling that they are being left out. They are being marginalized. They don't have proper representation, a political representation. And this agitation should have been handled properly. Instead of sending the police and repressive measures, Kathmandu could have been more humane and started talking to them. Instead of talking to these agitators, they started blaming India. More than 160-200 trucks from the Indian side were standing in the Indian border. They were not allowed to go inside. Therefore, I think Nepal has to pull up its act, pull up the socks and start behaving as if they are a responsible state. That is the whole problem. From the Indian side, whatever we could have done, we have done. We cannot do anything beyond this. But yet we have been telling Nepal that they are free to choose a constitution of their choice. But while they do this, instead of blaming India, they should look inwards. This is what we are saying. India, New Delhi is prepared to go to any extent to help Nepal.
You
but
don't think,
it
Mr.
is
Chari,
their
that anything could have been
requirement
handled
also that
differently?
They should be prepared to receive the help.
But Mr. Chari, you don't think anything could have been handled differently by New Delhi?
No, it's not the...
And especially because when we look at the situation there today,
we can't,
it's an unprecedented situation where then Nepal is paying the China card again, has decided to look at fuel supplies from China now, and again I come to the point that what changed between in the last 12 months, where there was this sort of warm embrace for Mr. Modi then and now, when there is this sort of very visible anti-India sentiment now that you can see in many parts of the country there.
No, this is not the first time that Nepal is talking to China. Even during the Prachanda government, Prachanda visited China. Prachanda also opened up Chinese infrastructure to China. China has been investing in Nepal. But all along, India has also been talking to China. In fact, when the issue of 64,000 megawatts of new, hydraulic power enhancing and utilizing the hydraulic power base was concerned, Nepal said, if India cannot do it, we will go to China. We said, yes, if China wants to invest, you can go ahead and do it. But finally, it is not possible for China to take all this electricity towards China and use it. It has to be ultimately sold to India or sold to Bhutan. Bhutan is already supplying to India. So finally, India is going to buy this electricity from Nepal. So that is not the issue. Even now, if China can supply all the requirements to China, it is not possible at all because the logistics don't support. And we are not here to compete with China as far as Nepal is concerned. I think both are concerned. But Nepal also, Kathmandu should realize and remember that playing China card against India is not going to work. It will be highly detrimental for this. It will be very unproductive for them. Therefore, I think sooner they resolve their own internal problems, it is better for Nepal and India both.
Okay, Manish Tiwari, I could see that faint smile on your face as Mr. Chari was speaking. Why? Because Mr. Chari makes a good point that playing the China card won't work, and he has a point because logistically there is only so much China can do for Nepal. And isn't the larger responsibility here really on Kathmandu and the way it has handled this entire issue with the constitution and then with the protests and the kind of brutal crackdown that took place yesterday in which an Indian national was killed? Manish.
Nidhi, the difficulty is that when you try and restate India's Monroe Doctrine as a muscular dogma, then you are always in danger of running the gauntlet. It happened with this government in the case of Myanmar, where the manner in which one of their ministers, one of their junior ministers went across the board and bragging about a cross-border raid has created problems with Myanmar. It has happened in the case of Nepal primarily because the government and the Prime Minister tried to intervene into the constitution making process of Nepal at the last moment. It's not that as if India has not been engaged with the constitutional process of Nepal. It's been engaged with it from day one. India knew exactly the direction in which the constitutional process was heading. 85% of the Constituent Assembly voted to adopt the constitution. Now, at that point in time, if you start insisting that the constitution should declare Nepal as a Hindu Rashtra because some of your constituents want it and subterfuge it in the demand that some people are being marginalized, which is in fact correct, but and then decide to take sides in that factional fight rather than waiting for the constitution to be adopted and then through a process of gently nudging bring about the appropriate amendments in due course of time, you could have handled it better. But the real angst against Nepal wasn't that they alienated certain minorities, which they shouldn't have done in any case. It's a different matter that members of that minority community voted for that constitution, which ultimately got adopted. But the real angst was, why did you declare Nepal as a secular republic rather than a Hindu Rashtra? And that's what impelled the Prime Minister to send the Foreign Secretary to Kathmandu on that mission, which blew up in the face of India.
That's a strong comment by Manish Tiwari.
Sorry.
Mr. Chari, yes. Before I come to Vivek Karju and Prashant, yeah.
Nidhi, no, Nidhi, I think, Nidhi, I think Mr. Manish Tiwari is ill-informed as far as India's intervention is concerned. India very categorically said that we are not here to intervene at all. It was a long process, more than 7 to 8 years of process of constitution making. We never told them a word about Hindu Rashtra and all that. Anyway, Nepal was not a Hindu Rashtra. Even the 1950 constitution of Nepal categorically said it is Hindu Adhirajya. And 1980 constitution did away with that also. The sovereignty of Nepal lied with the people of Nepal, not even the king, even when it was a monarchy. Therefore, all these issues are all passé. BJP or Government of India, New Delhi, either UPA or NDA never put any such condition. We only told them, which is the policy of the UPA also, that whatever constitution you make should be an inclusive constitution, which will be very representative in character, and it will be some sort of a parliamentary democracy, a multi-party democracy with presidential form of government or a parliamentary form of government with Prime Minister as supreme or President as supreme, whatever you adopt.
Okay, so you're saying it has nothing to do with the issue of a Hindu
Not only India,
Rashtra,
but many other countries in the world have also been giving.
No, so let me ask Mr.
Absolutely
Katju
nothing. And if you think Madeshis are Hindus, I am sorry. The entire Nepal population, 85 to 90% of Nepal population is Hindu. People living in the upper reaches of the Himalayas are also Hindus.
Okay.
So it is
Mr.
not
Katju,
that 85% of the Hindus voted for the constitution and the Madeshis did not.
Mr.
Sorry.
Katju, how do you think India has handled it then? The bottom line.
Well, I think the first thing which I'd like to say is that it is unfortunate that Mr. Manish Tiwari is injecting Indian domestic politics in a foreign policy issue, especially one which is as sensitive as Nepal. Second, I think the Nepalese have handled this situation badly because there is an iron logic of geography which in no way Nepal can transcend. When it comes to relations with India, the China card, they will eventually realize is a bogus card and should never be played. But I'm constrained also to say that New Delhi has not covered itself with glory over the past few months in its diplomatic dealings with Nepal. I think we should not have lost sight of the ball. We did, because these issues have to be handled very discreetly. The moment they come out in the public domain, the diplomatic battle is more or less lost. And that is what New Delhi did, unfortunately. Now, it is not to say that this has not happened in the past. I am reminded of the time of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi when relations with Nepal had reached rock bottom, and Mr. Manish Tiwari should remember that.
Well, no, those are very valid points, and I'll take this to Prashant, who knows Nepal, so well. Would you say that what Vivek Arju is saying actually really sums it up, that Nepal's government has handled this badly, and so has India?
I'd like to first take on and agree with his first point, which is that the Nepal government has handled it badly. And I think we need to remember that India did not create the facts on the ground. The fact on the ground was that for 40 days before the constitution was promulgated, the Tarai was on fire. Madhesi protests had escalated. There was serious and genuine grievances on issues of representation, on issues of inclusion, on the issues of federal demarcation, where the constitution had shortchanged a substantial section of the population. 40 people had died, and we have a Human Rights Watch report which has documented state brutality. This had added to alienation, and this had disrupted the situation right at the border. India had discreetly been telling, and there was a conversation that Prime Minister Modi had with Prime Minister Koirala where he urged the Nepali political leadership to ensure the widest possible agreement. I think where I would agree with Mr. Katju and Mr. Tiwari is that India should have done more when there was space for discreet and active diplomacy before the promulgation and preparation of the constitution. Having said that, I do think that the Indian policy formulation is absolutely correct. India is saying that, look, get your act together and draw an inclusive constitution, amend the constitution, bring these sections of society within the national framework, because if this does not happen, within a few years, what we are going to see is greater radicalization of the Tarai Street. You don't want to end up with a Sri Lanka-like situation. And I call this the Sri Lanka 1983 moment. The scale of oppression may be different, but today, Madhes is at the crossroads, Tarai is at the crossroads. If there is a constitutional settlement within the national framework, we will see the Madhesi moderate political leadership win. If that does not happen, if Kathmandu continues to ensure a crackdown on the Madhesi protesters, we will see increasing attraction to separatism. Do you want a separatist movement right at the border? I would assume that Delhi does not want that, which is why temporary unpopularity in Kathmandu is worth the larger strategic goal of Madhesi accommodation within the national Nepali structure.
That's a very important point. Manish Tiwari, isn't that a very important point that Prashant is making? That, even if Delhi today is temporarily unpopular in Kathmandu, there is a bigger strategic goal here, and that you need to have a constitution that is inclusive, that takes care of the concerns of the Madhesis, and that is something that is in the long-term interest of India. Manish.
Well, Nidhi, I do not agree with that point of view, and I would come to that in a bit. But I would just like to remind Mr. Vivek Karju that possibly when he was focused on pursuing India's diplomatic interests, he forgot to possibly read about the relationship that the RSS had with Nepal, and especially with the Nepalese monarchy right from 1950 onwards, and the manner in which they have been trying to influence the domestic discourse in Nepal.
How is that
so therefore,
relevant to
I was
today?
not trying to inject, domestic politics. Mr. Karju, hang on. Let me complete. When you get your turn, you can speak. So therefore, I was not trying to inject any domestic politics into the Nepalese debate. I was only laying out the facts on the ground. Number two, coming to the point which Prashant had raised, I am very uncomfortable with this idea, Nidhi. If you believe in sovereignty and if you believe in respecting the territorial integrity of your neighbor, then yes, you can articulate concerns, but you cannot arm twist them, to take a particular direction or the other. If the Madheshis or the other marginalized groups have unfortunately been left out, they will have to find their own modus vivendi. And if India at all has to play a role, India has to play the role of a skillful negotiator, an artful, nimble negotiator, and not in a completely ham-handed manner, with a hammer in hand, which drives Nepal squarely into the camp of China. So therefore, it is not whether the logistics allow China to access Nepal in the manner in which India can. The very fact that the Nepalese, who had given the current Prime Minister a fairly warm welcome when he had gone there, have done a 360-degree U-turn. It's primarily because of the very ham-handed manner in which the government of India tried to intervene. And that's the unfortunate reality, which unfortunately some of our hawks are not prepared to listen to. And to go back to Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, let me also remind Mr. Karju that was the time when the Trade and Transit Treaty was expiring and it had to be renegotiated.